Actually brought up, born in St Andrews, but brought up in Dunphy. Yeah. And the last time I was in Glasgow doing a reading was probably the Scotia Bar, and I got a lot of hassle from some guy saying just about here somewhere, and he was just totally fucking pissed. And I just walked off the stage and went, fuck that for a laugh. Got my train fee and went home. Hope it's not as bad tonight. Right, I'll just start off with this one. This is probably the lightest poem in the repertoire. The rest is probably quite depressing for you though. Hame entertainment. Without the drink, hame entertainment, bairns on my knees, soaps every night, curly with a wife, holidays abroad and a steady job, sure is cosy, coochie coo, without the drink, got off my fucking head. Things become a wee bit more serious after this. This is Climates and Continents, and this book here is Fugitive Bullets, published by the One O'Clock Press, but actually organised by your MC here, Mr. Jim Ferguson. Sorry, Dr. Jim Ferguson, PhD. And I'm just going to read a wee sequence from this, and then I'll go on to my latest book, Cuba, and do a wee sequence from that. Okay, and we'll go see how we go from there. This is Climates and Continents, and also these poems are actually written in Edinburgh vernacular. The next 5 poems are going to do, and the next bunch, aren't they? Okay. Hope that explains it. Climates and continents. Climates and continents and shifty plates. The death of Saturn and the breaking up of cities. The lassies were anxious and like crushed stars as they tried to push them into the fires. It was a time for bullets, nae love, as the tanks rolled across the land. Some of the lassies got a wall and ran into houses full of needle punchers. The climate changed and Jupiter got ever closer. Hooded corbies went looking for the weak and mortally wounded. Eating out tin cans. We waited a long time for the fighter jets. Sections of Asbos ungraced. Stabbed in a lay-by no far from home. Pissed up with a ripped up pay poke. 3 bairns to keep. Got as far as his own doorstep before he collapsed. At his funeral, his pals wept. Cheers. This is Sharpdale Killers in the same vein. Sharpdale Killers. When the bus turns into the drive, their air guns are cocked. Young laddies with their fingers on the triggers. Burning bright in all the moral zeros. Blunt, blunt, sharp, sharp. Who the fuck are you looking at? There's a hot up in Asda, a seed situation at the post office. Gone down the dark close. 2 of the gang met their ends. The Sharpdale Killers were waiting for them and shot them for the side out of viewpoint. Their mothers were screaming, "Dinna go down there, dinna go down there." And the balloon man whistles far away. The Sharpdale Killers. Now the Sharpdale is actually a wee street just next to Cavan Toll, next to the Edge, which is a notorious house and estate. And it was built for families we kind of after the Second World War, and now it has actually become a fucking war zone. Anyway, this is education and poetry. A poem is a city at war, a destroyer of words, the red spot on Jupiter. A poem is an atomic bomb, a black hole in a spiral galaxy, a Dean sun in an infinite universe. A poem is a semicolon, a full stop. A poem is a honeymoon period, a marriage gone wrong, an intransitive love affair and a best kept secret. There's a bairn you never expected in a place full of hooligans. A poem is a message for the street and ripped for a Velcro heart. This is the last piece from this little pamphlet. This is actually a kind of unrequited love poem, so this is kind of lightening the mood a wee touch. In the little dark streets. Dark and stingrays in the little dark streets, with the black freckled patterns that eventually led to your scattered flight. So, does all this mean then that we didn't have to worry about saying the wrong thing in there? And that from now on it's going to be so easy just to forget it was ever such a big deal in the first place? Oh well then, that'll be yet another style play for today. Cheers. Next part. I really liked Michael Peterson's reading. Is he here about? Is he still here? Or is he? Anyway, I couldn't believe you actually fucking scrumpled up a poem and shoved it in your pocket. That was a fucking disgrace to the text. Anyway, it was still a good set. Anyway, this is for the book that was published on Whirlpool Press. This is called Cubit if Cubit Knew. And of course, Cubit was the character and the gang of Pinkies in Brighton Rock, of course. So that's the inspiration behind the title. Alright, and this, the first piece is, was actually a text message poem by Nicky Mello. Dun, 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 dun. For all the queen swans in Northern England, dark illicit meat. That's the first one for the book. And we'll continue in that vein. This is Holocaust poem. In response to Holocaust, Charles Reznikov, Black Sparrow Press, 1975. You can actually get an audio recording by Professor Abraham Rivet, an interview with a guy that did the whole book on the Holocaust. Very moving, you should check it out. Holocaust poem. Haunted by it, of babies being ripped apart by SS men whilst they casually pull out from their pockets lumps of sugar to give to the dogs. This next one. We all know what happened last year with all these so-called spring revolutions and that, but there's one country that still hasn't succumbed to that, and their president, which is Syria, of course. And I wrote this poem, not really kind of dealing with the revolutions at the time. It was just a wee article on The Guardian, and the first line was, "Spring reaches Damascus." Unfortunately, it hasn't. So I'll do that one again. Spring reaches Damascus. And this one's for Sandy Craigie, a great Edinburgh poet from the Coogate. Yeah, sadly passed away in 2005. No more wounded birds. Held the wounded bird in her hands, transfixed, a wee bit scared, just for a short while of it. Then with funny tears, she let it go. Anybody here read the Sunday Post at all? Anybody here read the Sunday Post? No? Okay. So you're under 70. Alright. I read the Sunday Post every bloody week religiously. Just for this piece. Can you do me a favour? They didn't use the internet. Sunday Post, can you do me a favour? Searching for pre-1960 chess magazines and post-war Wimbledon tennis booklets. A copy of How Green Was My Valley or Marathon Man in video. Of an elderly relative that can't use a DVD player. Looking for an LP by Nat King Cole along with a recipe for date and walnut cake. Lovely. From the Marks and Spencer cookbooks and a red bus on the moon. I left my knitting pattern at 2 weeks ago. Cheers. My mum loves that paper. Yeah, she's 76. Yeah. But it's good old-fashioned values, Ken. And these have been lost these days, Ken. Totally lost. Anyway, this is the death of the Kilmarnock willow, and this is dedicated to my mother-in-law. And she made my father kill this tree in the front garden. And she said it was dying of some kind of rare disease. But I gave her a big guilt trip about this one. And now it's published, so she's even more freaked out and pissed off. The death of the Kilmarnock willow on Paisley Drive this morning. His father was seen cutting it down. Nobody seems to know where its mother has gone. Probably at the back of the house, too scared to watch. Its thin branches hang, and so from the axe, the final blow was delivered. 1. Minus 61 in Stenhouse. 2. Shell suits frozen in flight. Internet Investigation Unit. Internet Investigation Unit found rumours running around in cyberspace that they had no information of real value to give us. Don't you find that? Anarchists. A bunch of anarchists have moved in next door. We'd like to invite them in for tea, play Crash records and hang the black flag. Fuck the Sex Pistols. And the last wee piece, well, 2 last pieces of this book. We've still got time down, am I right, eh? Good. Magic. The best reading I've done in Glasgow since 1991. Possibly. Anybody here take that, fans in? Come on, admit it. Ah, right, good. Brilliant, so you're under 40. That's better than 75. Okay, that's another fine point for the Glasgow Herald. Some guy went down to a reporter and we're just going to reporting on the pre-gig with all the older ladies wandering around, getting pissed up before the gig. Right, okay, right. Found that. Staggering around weeping on pavements, alcohol-related take that, mammy, army, tucked in innocence, incontinent excess, teeny bopper style fueled by white wine and vodka, behaviour of women coming out, collapse, taking a leak in the streets, pink-lipped eyelids, peed in their pants of emotional strain, drunken stagger down a few beers, kids back home, beyond the walls, faint, eerie wailing of grown-up women, ooh, not unlike any Saturday night with hordes of middle-aged women on the pool. Hope to get lucky. The last piece now from the book, and then just a couple of wee pieces over here, and that's me bloody done and dusted. Alright. Cubit of Cubit New. Now the point in this poem actually is that you can live in any seaside town, up and down the country, east and west. It could be Portobello, it could be Stonehaven, it could be Margate, it could be Brighton, doesn't matter. This kind of shit happens. Cubit of Cubit New. Got kite killed, shouting for murder in seaside towns, where birds swooped under piers, white in obscurity. In winter, snow fell covered tracks. Tram wheels creaked and in bars, whisper. Not too audible of killers' identities. Cars left on tables, lovers in restaurants. Cabaret singers, late night trysts in low-rent hotels. Guns in the attics of hoodlum quarters. Persons unknown who cry at night, knowing in the morning they would die in the underground station. The sound of the train, the last thing that we will hear. Going to do a couple there now, but I'm just going to set this one up for you. I've been reading a lot on the witch hunts, which they call it the witch crazes of the 16th and 17th century. H.R. Roper. It was quite a crazy time. They killed about maybe 2 million people in these centuries who were accused of witchcraft. So I'll kind of set off with that one, and then the next couple of poems is going to be basically about genocide in Rwanda in 1994, based on the sources for John Hatsfield. He wrote 2 books called A Time for Machetes and the other book, what was the other book? Into the Quick of Life. Now, Into the Quick of Life is from the Tutsis' point of view, and they were the victims, okay? And it strikes me as that the Tutsis have got a lot of forgiveness for the perpetrators of the violence. And the other one, other way around, they didn't seem to have any empathy or any guilt about what they did at all. Okay? So that's what I'm setting up here, and it's a bit depressing, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, just 3 points. Cheers. This is from Tarantula Nebula, by the way, which will be my next book, but I've not found a publisher for it yet, so we'll see about that. I just have to publish it myself. I think Jim said the title sounded like a glam rock thing, but it's certainly not glam rock, Jim. Just let me find it. Everybody having a nice night then, aye? Right, okay, I'm not depressing any bastard, right? That's good. I'm in Glasgow after all, everybody's happy here. Everybody's got a good crack. Right. Anyway, we'll start off with this as an introduction to this sequence of 4 poems, right? Intellectual elaboration. A commonly received error is never utterly overthrown, till such times as we go from signs into causes and show some root or foundation that is common to all, where it may clearly appear as to how it has come to pass, that so many have been put to blame for so much of the time their suffering overseen. European witch hunt craze. Witchcraft was to be explained by the identity of procedure, rather than by identity of experience. Identical works of reference, identical instructions to judges, identical leading questions supported by torments too terrible to bear. All the accused that were ever taken were tormented and tortured. So after this manner we were obliged to admit their fundamental subjective reality for every victim whose story had been created or improved by torture. but could we trust the accounts of a persecuting society against another with which it was at war with? Most of them that were taken in the witch hunt craze were victims of the persecutors who directed the judges the way that we should go. Now, that kind of sets up the whole parallel with the thing about Rwanda and genocide, you know, in general. The disappearance of the escape networks. Even in the most brutal of conflicts, lovers met secretly in towns that were besieged and flattened by artillery. Slender paths through cornfields provided safety valves away from the killing fields. There was a disappearance of escape networks. No links among the herders' tracks. No web of hiding places among the survivors. In the uninhabited forest between the marshes and the border frontiers. Wonderful stories, incredible romances, amazing gestures, poignant collaborations, humble and admirable deeds of solidarity between the enemy lines, for patching things up across the trenches, camaraderie impulses, gestures of compassion, all were absent. Rebellious adolescents and a gang of budding toughs created no civil disobedience in the villages, for this was the time for machetes. Normal people, not professional killers, did it. Although they slaughtered, what had they done? The final two pieces in this sequence. Pursuit of prey. Like safaris without cameras, in the morning they would come, in the pursuit of the prey, come up in rows like driving antelope into the places you were hiding. Then a new line of attack to finish off the wounded. Young people with nimble legs would slice through the air. Others would run straight on and out of breath. They were caught and cut to pieces. After the hunt, they went back down the hill in their triumph, looting the houses, cutting the strays, drinking beer and arguing their bragging rights. Who had went in without a fuss, and those who were hesitant, there was always somebody behind them to do the job. Maybe quickly, maybe slowly, depending upon the individual, which way you would die. We did not see them die. We could hear the grenades, see the smoke rising from the buildings. Women and children had taken refuge there. We were going to kill them all, so we ran from them. When you spy a figure in the distance that looks like one you've lost in the middle of the street, you do not know how they died. It is better to get killed elsewhere, away from your loved ones, than to watch them helpless as they are murdered. It gets the better of love and fidelity. These sentiments are engulfed when we are at the edge of life. This is why we thought it better to go out of sight of the other. Did not wish for our memories of one to be confiscated. Thanks a lot. Good night. Cheers. Cheers. Thanks, Jim. You've been a brilliant MC, pal. Excellent.
Thanks very much. I think Rodney Relax needs a wee bit more applause. That was a magnificent last poem there. Superbly human, superbly emotional, superbly wonderful.